Hey everybody, I'm TecToss and welcome to episode number 3 of TechTalk, the show where we get to talk about game mechanics in a little bit more depth than I get to in the Let's Plays, where I get to rant just a little bit about something that's bugging me or something that I've found interesting, might even be something in the gaming industry in the future, and where we honor a good comment that occurred during the week. Let's start it off with a quote of a German author that I really enjoy reading. I'm German, so a lot of the quotes gonna be from German books, I guess. Last week it was Nietzsche. This week it's Hermann Hesse, who apparently is well known in America for his book Steppenwolf. If you were struggling with depression or you're very interested in the depth of the human soul, you might look into that book, but I suggest you do it when you don't have any stress or when you have time to recover from it, because it's really something. You can learn a lot about yourself, but it requires a little energy to get through it, mildly put. And the quote says, "If you hate a person, you hate something in him that is part of yourself. What isn't part of ourselves doesn't disturb us." I would even go as far as to say what isn't part of ourself and what we don't know from ourselves, we don't even understand in others. And the quote is true, and you all know it, because whenever you see somebody make a mistake that you make yourself, or be offensive in a way that you suspect yourself to be, or just mimic your own fault, you get so very angry at them. It's almost the same effect as if somebody, preferably somebody who doesn't really have any business doing so, points out flaws in your behavior or in your language or whatever. We have that immediate impulse of getting very angry, and some of us are good in controlling it and actually listening to some advice, because every criticism can be viewed productive. And some of us just flip or get offensive themselves. And that quote sums it up quite nicely, and I think it couldn't be truer, and it's also tied in today's rant. So what's up today? We're going to talk about game mechanics and specifically about upgrade strategies, how they affect later techs, and what major ways there are to go about upgrades. And I'm talking about the weapon upgrades specifically, and today's rant is themed, "What I do is none of your business." And that's aimed at the people who think they got the authority to tell others what to do with their lives, what to wear, what not to wear, what to say, what to think, whatever. We're going to get to those guys in about 10 minutes. And the comment of the week, it's not old friends, it's an old friend. Somebody who was honored previously and apparently likes to be on this show. So it's another great comment, and we're going to get to that at the end of the show. Now, before we actually talk about upgrade strategies, I'm going to point out 3 major concerns that I see when thinking about which upgrades to get, and explain them just a little bit. Now, the first one is teching time is really precious, and that is true even more on higher difficulties, because the AI gets insane bonuses. They can expand a lot faster than you. They get this Empire approval bonus that makes it very easy for them to run away in terms of tech. So you probably won't catch up there. So you really need to pick the techs you need, and thus the time spent teching is precious. So you need to only get the upgrades you need. And also, when getting upgrades, of course, you have to take your resources into account. And that is addressing the strategic resources. And that's quite difficult to do, actually, because you only see the resources you have when you get into the era that allows you access to them. And for era 3, that's going to be adamantium and palladium, but you don't see that on the map, so you can't really decide if you have that or if you want to go for it before you actually reached era 3. So that is a little bit of a problem, and the way you can solve that is just taking the early game resources into account. So if you're swimming in glass, steel, and titanium, you might make use of it. You might want to make use of it and actually get those weapon upgrades in Era 2 and be aggressive. Third, watch the cost of your buildings. Because if you only have like a little bit of glass steel, or a little bit of titanium is even worse, and you think, well, I want to be aggressive, I want to attack my neighbors, I want to have the early upgrades and I'm going to go for them, you need to remember that a lot of the buildings do actually cost strategic resources, and as a general rule of thumb, you can say that everything dust related will cost you glass steel, everything tech related or science related will cost you titanium, and production related can be titanium, can also be adamantium, and you need to factor that in. You need to actually look at the cost of the buildings that you want to get and see if you have enough resources still to get the military you want. Now, I said there are two major ways to go about getting your early upgrades, and in my opinion, and of course you can differ from that and put that in the comments if you like, it's the early aggression, and that means aggressive expansion. This is like involving the tier 2 upgrades mostly, level 2 weapons, level 2 armor, and using them to get ahead early. Either occupy a large amount of territory and defend it, or actually taking that from your enemies. Or if you need to defend against your neighbors. And especially important for that is to have good early regions, because you won't have access to all the FTSE output buildings that you'll get with later techs, so you actually need your regions to supply that. And, well, it's good to have good regions, right? It's going to be very hard to be aggressive if you barely have the resources to tech up or to build your tech buildings. So keep that in mind. If you have good starting regions, it's maybe a good idea to actually capitalize on that and be aggressive. The other one is the what I would call late catch-up, and that is if you got enough room to expand, then it's viable. And the late catch-up focuses around skipping tier 1 and tier 2 upgrades and going for tier 3 and tier 5 upgrades. So you're going to wait until tier 3 and get all the FTSE output you need, upgrade your cities, get all the buildings you need, so you're set up to produce a kind of high-tech armor. That also requires kind of peaceful or weakish neighbors. So if you're next to the Ardent Mages, it's probably going to be difficult, or next to the Necrophages, because they have really strong early game units, and they're also kind of aggressive, and you need to be able to defend against them. Also not possible if you have just mediocre early regions. Also possible, I mean. Because you can offset that with techs later on, and you need to offset it as early as possible with getting FTSE output. So you rather want the FTSE output bonus from the tier 2 buildings than actually waiting until tier 3 and falling further and further behind. So that also warrants a late catch-up tech, and that means going for tier 3. Now I brought two examples from two series that I played, and let's look at them. So with the general principle out of the way, let's actually look at two examples of a series that I played and or am still playing, and see how the ideas that I discussed actually come into practice and what implications they have for the way you tech and the way you play. So this here is my current Broken Lord playthrough, and as the Broken Lords I chose to tech rather quickly and try to, as you can see here with all the districts, try to build broad. As you see here, there's just a couple where I just started building the districts, but my focus was on covering the map as fast as possible and also get my Empire approval and my dust production up to actually be able to A, afford buying out buildings and units, and B, having the ability to actually expand as much as I do. And now, let's see how I chose to actually upgrade. Sadly, the Broken Lords start with a pretty useless tech, and that's the level 1 armor, which I didn't yet encounter a scenario where you really want to get the level 1 weapon and armor, but I assume it's possible. Anyway, so being alone on this island, I decided it was not necessary to actually get the level 2 weapons and armor just right away. And as you can see, there are just a lot of techs that the Broken Lords will need in Era 2 and that's their unit, and that's the ability to buy out cheaper. That's of course the shipyard, so I can travel off the island. I need to produce stuff, I need to get the alchemy workshop, and so on. So there's a lot of stuff I need, and there's no imminent danger. So my choice here was to skip level 2 entirely, and that's actually one of the ways you can go about teching. It's like, don't get your armies immediately, delay that a little bit, focus on the expansion, get the techs you need for expansion, like the management sciences that allow you to produce faster, or of course if you really need production, or maybe you're playing as the wild walkers, then the canal system might also be an option to get even more production. And then get the basic buildings, the alchemy workshop, the central market, the imperial highways, and you might even want where is it? You might even want the glory of the empire with some of your respective races. And of course you also get that public library and the mill foundry and whatnot that you need to build in all your new regions. So you will need a lot of production, and you will need your tech to actually get those basics. Now the problem being, the higher difficulty ratings you pick, the faster the AI will tech, and there's just no way for you, no way whatsoever, to actually catch them in tech. Some races, maybe the Ardent Mages, have a shot at catching up later, maybe the Walters have that too, but it's gonna be really hard, so you need to prioritize, and there's actually 2 routes to actually tech. So one is, like I chose, get the basics in Era 2, skip on the level 2 weapons and level 2 armor. Of course we're still gonna need the alchemist's furnace, so we can actually get those resources, because a lot of the buildings do need either glass steel or titanium, so you want that in your arsenal anyway. And then in Era 3 go straight for the level 3 weapons, and that will be your first army that you'll actually use to attack with, and actually use to try and aggressively expand with. And that is an option if, and only if, you like have a silent start where there's not much in terms of a threat. Like if you can look around here, that's just a small island that I started on. There wasn't really much of a threat. We only met the Draken, who offered peace pretty early, so we did not need any defenses really. We just needed an army to clear out the minor faction villages, and that's easily doable with just the basic upgrades. So you don't need that level 2, and if you don't need it, you might save the teching time and jump right to level 3 upgrades. Now, if you go for the level 3 upgrades and you actually have the strategic resources to do that, which of course also can be a concern, then you might want to skip, or most likely you will skip, unless you're really drowning in those Hyperion and Mithrite resources, the level 4 upgrades. Because again, there's a lot of techs you can actually get from Era 3 that are pretty useful, like the statistical methods, pretty good, gonna give you a huge science boost. The National Museum is a very interesting tech for getting up your influence and getting good empire plans working. Of course, the cargo docks for production-oriented play are pretty awesome. And of course, Era 4 has also offered a couple of techs that you might want, like Brigade System that gives you a plus 20% defense flat, or the Signal Corps that will let you get 8 army slots, provided that you got the meritocratic promotion that will give you the other 2. So you might want to save the teching time, because again, stressing out, it's really precious, and you might want to save that, not get the rare alloys and the rare armor, and jump straight to Era 5, where there's an upgrade on your already existing titanium and palladium. Right? So you can just get that marvelous alloys and marvelous armor and be set for that. Now that's one way to go about it, and let me get out of that and actually load up another game and show you just another way to go about this early upgrade. Now, here we are in our Walter's playthrough, and also in episode 10, same as the Broken Lords that I showed you earlier. And here we had a very different starting situation. The island we started on was a lot smaller and had a lot less viable expansion slots. Like here we only had 4 regions, or actually 3 regions to expand to, and only 2 of them would be what I consider good or decent. So we had to aggressively expand pretty early, and also we've been attacked pretty early. Like you can see here, it's bordering the Arden Mage Empire, and they tested our strength quite early on in attacking this Lodera region. So we had to have a strategy that allows us to defend for one, and have a force to actually strike back and defend our growing empire. Now, lucky for us, we had a couple of regions up here on the next island that we could settle on, but we could also have just aggressively expanded to the left or to the right, if there indeed was an AI already settling on these islands. Now, the attacking strategy was very different, and we got a little lucky in this playthrough, so it's not quite exemplary of what you usually would do. But of course, in level 1, I think we got that from a quest, or did the Walters start with it? I'm not sure, but the advanced armor, almost certainly never a good idea to actually actively tech that, because again, there's no real viable strategy with level 1 weapons yet. Now, if you guys come up with one, that's different, but I didn't see it work, and I can't really imagine a scenario where you would be able to make it work, just because of the huge bonuses the AI gets in the early game. So you kind of wait until they level out. Now in the early game, of course, just get the usual stuff. Now in tier 2, we actually got the alchemical armor, and I would have gotten the alchemical alloys as well. Just got lucky and got the quest for the exotic alloys, which is a level 3 titanium and glass steel. And this allowed us to actually defend our empire and be really aggressive early on and push back the Arden Mage units and actually aggressively expand to this top island here. Now what you would usually do is either get a good minor faction unit or get your tier 2 units, whichever is better or whichever is more convenient to get. We again got lucky getting the Harmonite unit, so we didn't need the Titan as a blocker. But it might be different in your playthrough. Now also you want to focus on getting the very basic techs in tier 2, like get the public granary, get the alchemy workshop, and maybe if you need it, the central market. We got a little more because again we got lucky with the exotic alloys, and that saved us a little time to tech. But in general, you get the basics, and then you go straight for the alchemical alloys and the alchemical armor, and you build your alchemist's furnace pretty early on, because that does 2 things for you. For one, you'll be able to build upgraded armies a lot faster. I mean a lot, because you actually can start harvesting resources in when you're still in tier 1, and research the necessary techs in tier 2, and then immediately retrofit your army and start producing it. And that allows you again to be a lot more aggressive and to aggressively take territory from the AI or expand fast and defend your territory. Now where you want to make up for the missing, like maybe production or maybe whatever you skipped on to get your early level 2 weapons earlier, you're gonna make up for that in era 3. You're gonna pick the plow factory, maybe, of course the dust refinery, because it's just an awesome building. Maybe if you skip the market, you want the bread and circuses, or if you're so aggressively expanding, you might want to need both. I usually need both because I like to expand a lot. And then you can also get the text like statistical methods, or you could go for the National Museum to get good empire plans, and you don't spend any teching time for getting the uncommon alloys and the uncommon armor, and also don't spend that time in era 5. Because the way you at least the way I think it's optimal to go about the upgrade, is either get an early upgrade, get an early advantage, and then use that advantage to have the time to actually build up your FIDSI output, or build up your FIDSI output first, then get your upgrades and be aggressive with them then. Now, what we're going to do in this playthrough, I think, is get the rare alloys and the rare armor in era 4, because that's a nice compromise. You'll always want to take upgrades in one era, then in the next era focus on getting your FIDSI, because you'll use your weapons and you'll then have to make use of the territory of either conquered or settled, and then get the next set of upgrades. And for us, that's going to be the rare alloys and the rare armor using Mithrite and Hyperion. And we're going to skip the marvelous alloys and the marvelous armor unless we really like already winning hard. Then we can win harder and have that power fantasy. But if you're under pressure and you're still in a race for not sure for defeating the AI, you really want to just stick to the upgrades you actually need and you're actually able to retrofit. Now, these plans can be screwed quite a bit by lack of strategic resources, but in general, that's the way you want to go about it. So, I hope that helped you decide which upgrades to get. And now, let's get to the ranting and to my favorite types of people, who are the ones who look at others and find interesting and helpful stuff to say. And it's the you should study something real. Say that to people who want to study social studies, or they're into philosophy, or they're into art or music and they want to study that. And there's people who look at that and say, there's no money in it. You should go ahead and be an engineer or study something real that you can build, that you can see. It's gonna make you happier. Or you shouldn't. You shouldn't dye your hair. You won't get a job with that. It doesn't suit you. It's not accepted. Don't do it. Learning math. It's so boring. Why do you do it? Come party with us. Partying is so unproductive. What idiot will spend his life partying? You should look at your freaking self. What business of, sit back a second and think about how many people you judge. And I do that myself. I catch myself with that quite often. But look back at that and think what this really does for you or the other person. Well, did you come up with anything? I certainly didn't. It doesn't do shit usually. You tell them, do this, do that. You should join us. You should leave us. You should whatever. It doesn't help usually. And most of it is actually things that you yourself wanted to do, like parents telling their kids to study this and that. Oftentimes, it's the parents wanting to do that, missing the opportunity when they were young, and now forcing their kids to do it. And that's just not healthy. Or you have your own faults and you see them in others and you don't like it. Or you see others having fun and you're jealous and you don't like it and you point it out. Oftentimes, before you open your mouth and you criticize someone for being different or doing something that you don't approve, take a second, take 5 seconds, look at yourself and ask yourself, what am I doing here? Why does this criticism come up? And oftentimes you'll find, I'm jealous of that, or I want to do that myself, or he kind of does what I do. It's upsetting me. And then the productive way to go about it is not to run your mouth at somebody, because usually that only gets you in fights or gets you unliked. The productive way to go about it, take that with you and work on it for yourself. Like if you think studying engineering is productive, well, go ahead and do it. Don't tell people to study engineering. If you think dyeing your hair is gay or you won't land a job, well, don't do it. Get with the traditional 50s style haircut and get your engineering job. That's fine. I do that. But others go about it differently. And that's fine as well. If you think art isn't really a study, people in arts, they just doodle around all day. I wouldn't want to spend my life like that. Those idiots. well, that's their choice, and it's none of your business to actually, well, you could comment on it, but really, it doesn't do anything. If you don't want to spend your time like that, don't do it. And I recently had a talk about that with a friend of mine, and she actually, I met her when I was studying, and she's a real smart girl, obviously by studying IT, because there's really few girls in that. If there's any girls watching, go ahead, study IT. You should do that. No, I'm kidding. So she's studying IT, but she's really kind of like I wouldn't call her party girl, but something in that direction. She goes out a lot, and she has a real big circle of friends. Now, I myself, I'm more of the boring math learning guy, and I was pretty good at my study. But then we realized it's like a perfect match. She would take me out, and I would go ahead and party a lot and get drunk a lot and had a lot of fun. And I, in turn, would help her with math. And that's a productive way to go about it, because we both have different skills. We're both, well, I don't want to sound cocky, but we're both kind of smart. But we just chose a different way to different things to focus in life. And that's okay if you just accept the way others are, and try and find a common ground, or try and find out how your skill actually complements the other, and the others complement yours. And you could save yourself a lot of anger and a lot of unnecessary ranting at others and making them feel uncomfortable. And also, one last add to that, and then I'm going to go ahead to the comment of the week. A lot of the skills that people think are viable or think are productive depend on the kind of society you're living in. Yeah, it's true, today engineering is a real good skill to have, and you're going to earn money with it no matter what, if you're at least decent at it. But maybe 20 years back, it wasn't a recent skill, and 50 years from now, maybe it's not. Like, the times are different, and they just because a society rewards a certain skill doesn't mean it's better or worse. It's not society that defines you, it's you yourself. So you should go with what you're good at. You should do what you enjoy doing, what you truly enjoy doing, not what you think others might find cool. And don't give a shit about those people who only run their mouth and don't actually follow up on the tips they give. So that's my rant for today, and now let's get to the comment of the week. And again, it's Rodon265, who again did an analysis of buyout costs in episode 7 of my Broken Lord playthrough, and he got in depth of actually the actual cost and how it compares industry cost, how it compares to the dust, and how you can make the dust focus work out. Because, of course, in this episode I'm playing the Broken Lord, so that kind of makes sense. And he compared industry and dust focus with the first, I think, 4 or 5 settlers you actually get, and how they match up, and why you could find a way to, or how you could find a way to make the dust focus superior. So thanks again for the awesome long comment, and sorry for not being able to reply to them in depth, because there's a lot of comments to read and a lot of comments to reply, and I do my best to actually reply to every single one, but those who actually are I want to value them the most, I have so little time to actually comment on them. So I'm going to reward you with the comment of the week again. Don't go for a third time, let someone already have that. And well, that does it for this episode. If you got any opinion, sorry for that, on my rant or on how to go about upgrades, put that stuff in the comments. That is what this show is for, to actually get into a discussion and actually learn from it. And it might also be possible that I make mistakes sometimes. It's just my personal view, it's just my way of playing the games. And you could go about it different, and if you can actually have evidence that suggests your way is better, please share it. Please put it in the comments, let us know, and I would love to correct myself and love to learn about the game. Also, you go ahead and have a wonderful day. Today is Sunday when I'm recording this. I'm just gonna relax now, play a little bit of Divinity Original Sin, and we'll see each other on Monday for another episode of Broken Lord's playthrough. Until then, have a wonderful day, and see you around for the next episode. Until then, goodbye.